My name is Marin. I'll be your moderator today. I'm contributing to Lido protocol for 2.5 years, but we have a coincidence that two of us actually contribute to the same protocol. So I promise you no bias and at least EF levels of bias, just a bit for advisorship. Today we have it's, in my opinion, one of the better panels because we have speakers from liquid staking, restaking directly, lending market, bridging. So we have full stack based on tech and business. So expect good topics to be discussed. Guys, you want to go for a quick round of intros?
Hi everybody, my name is Brad Harrison. I work on Venus Protocol, which is a lend and borrow application on Ethereum, BNB chain, and as of a few days from now, Arbitrum 1. And really happy to be here in Croatia.
Hey, I'm Marko. I work at LeFi and Jumper Exchange. We aggregate bridges and dexes and make it possible for users to get any token they want on any chain, and also for protocols to support that for their users. Happy to be here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge, aka Kotler in the space. I'm a co-founder at Nektar Network, which is a multi-layer restaking protocol. Yeah, and if you have any technical questions about restaking later, I will happily talk to you about it. And thank you for being here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jakov. I'm contributing to Lido DAO as a master of DeFi to the protocol relations team, which pretty much means that I'm trying to make staked ETH the asset that you want to get.
Thank you. So I'll kick right to it. Remember Brad saying in Dubai, we are so early. You said it so many times that I remembered it. So in terms of restaking, it's a novelty in the space and it's a new shiny thing. Everyone's talking about it, from Ethereum Foundation to every single project that wants to do something in terms of DeFi. So Jorge, Diva started as an LST. You briefly mentioned it's still going to be an LST, but you actually decided to go a step forward and make it liquid restaking protocol itself, like on a protocol level. Does it mean native staking is gone? What would be the pros of restaking? Why the step forward?
So I guess it's a mix of everything: market conditions, narratives. And yeah, we were mainly building a liquid staking protocol that was powered by native DDT, with the focus of giving an alternative to solo stakers who maybe do not have the capacity of depositing 32 Ether, which is pretty restrictive at the moment. But then the narrative started changing when eigenlayer and restaking appeared, and we had to take a decision of, okay, what do we do? Can we get on the boat somehow of restaking? Do we integrate the LST, which was a no-no because we were not a mainnet? Do we become liquid staking natively? That was a no-no because we were already deep in the development of Diva. So we started studying restaking and said, okay, let's go straight for the restaking at the protocol level. Actually, pretty well. We are almost there. We like to paint it as added value for Diva stakers and operators. So, yeah, I think restaking is just the way to go now because we are going down the path of very low APY on ETH, independently if the new research on issuance goes through. Even if it doesn't, when we reach to a point of a lot of ETH staked and the collateral going to very low APY, restaking is one of those things that are going to keep operators engaged and incentivized to keep validating the network.
Thank you. Jakov, next one for you. Essentially, Lido is the biggest brand in terms of liquid staking. Do you think, in your personal opinion, of course, Lido should follow these steps?
Personally, I believe no. Though I think restaking is quite interesting technology. I think there's a huge amount of value of being only the staking middleware, and that moving to upgrading staked ETH to become like a liquid restaking token, or moving the Lido protocol to become a restaking platform is not a good move because it just adds a lot of risk that you can have on layers on top, so you can still keep the staked ETH. It has a lot of value of being the most robust staking platform, staking infrastructure, and then the idea is to allow other restaking platforms to build on top of the best staking platform.
Added risk is definitely a big part of like the restaking conversation. Just like show of hands, who knows what an AVS is? Okay, that looks like less than 3%. Maybe we should tell people what AVSs are.
So essentially, active validated services, it's abbreviation. In terms, when we say restaking, the assets are not actually restaked again on the validator. They are used as a collateral. What can be an AVS? It can be an Oracle. It can be your L2. So essentially, variety of points where additional APR can be sourced. Now, the tricky part is how to make it scalable, because in reality, we have only one AVS live, which is EigenDA, and one restaking protocol that's live, currently generating 0% APR. So that would be one of the things that potentially could be interesting to discuss if anyone wants to pick up.
I would actually like to pick up, because I would like to present how, like the idea I had when I first read about restaking, when I first started reading the EigenLayer white paper, I was like, wow, this is really cool. You have these networks, these L2s, these Oracle networks that are, most of them are based on some kind of, or will be based on some kind of proof of stake consensus. And then they can just borrow security. They don't have to bootstrap their own thing. And then in reality, what is actually happening is that you have some old projects from 2021 that nobody used, and they are looking to pivot to become an AVS because they see they can extract the value from EigenLayer, which is completely the opposite of what I was expecting, and which is why I think it will take time for the value to be created to actually satisfy these, like, what, 15 billion of capital that is supplied. So yeah, I think we still need more time and thinking to make it actually more transparent when it comes to risk and the value that users will be getting back.
Yep, slightly to clarify. AVSs need security, so the question is, do you want to run your own nodes and put a price tag on a token that would be deposited on the nodes to secure the network, or you want to borrow the security, which is borrowable, essentially a marketplace called EigenLayer, or in future Nektar or Kerak or multiple other protocols that are going to be deployed. But Brad, you said security, which kind of drives me to the next point. Lending market is where the actual battle between liquid stake tokens and liquid restake tokens is being waged. What makes a better collateral? What are the safety measures? How do you put the safety net for the users, because users in general don't really care about security until something bad happens?
Yeah, so all these assets are like derivatives, meaning that they're different representations of some underlying asset. So with like staked ETH from Lido, you're getting a derivative of ETH, right? And you're counting on the assurances from the Lido protocol. One reason why restaking is riskier is because now it comes with two security assumptions. So you have to trust the EigenLayer, you have to trust the intermediary, which one might be EtherFi or Nektar here, or you have to trust the AVS, which there really aren't AVSs running, but as we said, AVSs are like services that help you to abstract away the need for nodes. So for you developers, when you hear AVS, think of like AWS. Right? Like any application needs like 20 backend services from AWS to run. So we're extending the capabilities of blockchain by using AVSs for things that might otherwise be like a pain to do on Ethereum because it's expensive and what have you. So to come full circle, different collaterals come with different forms of risk. This is important because if you're going to use it as collateral, you can get wrecked. And one of the assumptions of using derivatives like STETH is that lending protocols, including Venus and other blue chip ones, make a one-to-one assumption in the price of that derivative. So they're assuming all the time that that ST-ETH is one-to-one to ETH, right? And this is a safe assumption for now. Is it a safe assumption always? We don't know. So Venus is a pioneer in a technology called Resilient Oracle, which eliminates a single point of failure, which most lending protocols have, because everybody relies on Chainlink mostly. But we're the only lending protocol to use a resilient oracle, which gives you 3 levels of safety. So we have a primary oracle, a secondary one, and a third. And each oracle provides a different angle of pricing. So our first one does the one-to-one assumption. If there's a massive depeg event, which we hope and we pray that there won't be, but if it should ever happen and it's sustained, you don't want to assume that there's a one-to-one price between ETH and ST-ETH, right? So this is one differentiator for us. And the other one is that I think we're the only blue chip that has an isolated pool for ETH correlated assets. So there's blue chips that mix all their assets together and they do wallet level segregation. On Venus, though, we have a pool just for ETH correlated assets, and our philosophy is that gives you more protection from getting liquidated.
One minor comment, we don't call them derivatives because then in terms of compliance they fall in a very specific bucket. For us those are tokens.
They're not derivatives.
Not derivatives.
They're like derivatives, but they're not derivatives, sorry.
Also, just to kind of get a broader understanding, some of the liquid restaking tokens actually have ST-ETH as an underlying asset as well, and other liquid stake tokens. So how would you advise lending markets to approach it, since it's a repackaging of assets in terms of risk, obviously?
So one way is to isolate assets of different risk levels. I think there's plenty of room to play for having assets with different dimensions of risk, ST-ETH, ETH, Easy ETH, because this lets users choose their own composability adventure. And we should have, in decentralization, we should have a diversification of assets, right? So, yeah. We have collaterals that are isolated in this pool, and I don't know if I got to the crux of your question, Marin, sorry.
So, I mean, you did address it by creating isolation. So, just for the audience, for example, the largest lending market is Aave, and they don't have isolation. So essentially, the pool of assets is shared with all the ETH that's on the platform. All the liquid staking tokens and liquid restaking tokens utilize the same pool. So when you loop and do DeFi strategies, you're essentially even limited, but also exposing to risk everyone else who's using the platform. So one of the angles would be, yes, to segregate the markets. Marko, to not leave you out, bridging, very important part. Previously, everyone was afraid of bridging. Now it became a standard. But with all the shiny things, there's a huge demand to bridge these liquid restake tokens. And then it snapped. For example, it started with Arbitrum. There's now staking from L2s on L1s, but the protocols itself are on Ethereum. So can you drive us through the process? How does the actual staking from L2s happen? And are there risks involved into this process?
Sure. First of all, it's beautiful to be on a panel and not be the least secure part on the chat. As we're adding layers into the restaking narrative, Croatia is getting actually a lot more secure part of it. So the usual flow, so you have Bedrock with Seller IM intermessaging, you have Connects built with Renzo. Usually how it works is users deposit into Connects. It's usually a representation of XERC20 token, which is basically their cross-chain token standard. They batch the transactions to bridge to L1, deposit an eigenlayer, and basically bridge the liquid representation of the token to the user on the L2 that he can continue using. Now, how exactly the flow differs if you're using IM or Connects, but that's in general how the flow works. From a risk perspective, it's basically a novel use case. It's not creating new trust assumptions. So the risk is where the risk in bridges is in general. So like liveness with liquidity, meaning that founders of the bridges have to be awake 24/7 to rebalance liquidity. Smart contract risk, but all of that can be mitigated. Like Connect, for example, they're using canonical bridges. So the risk is somewhat minimized as much as possible. So it doesn't seem like a very touchy topic anymore, like it was a year and a half ago or two. I think after $5-6 billion lost in hacks, we've kind of learned how to approach it a bit differently. And so the nice part of it is actually opening up the UX for a wider audience that's maybe priced out of ETH, mainnet, using it mainly, and creating these more UX-friendly solutions to move your money around. But the risk is somewhat minimal. And one other thing I'd like to touch on is the token standards. So the issuers should this is where the most of the risk lies. So you need the ability to be able to set rate limits, which bridge you're going to put in, how much of the token they're going to be able to issue to mitigate the potential single point of failure. So if you have 5 bridges that can issue your cross-chain token standard, and you limit it to a specific dollar amount or whatever, so you're limiting how much can it actually go wrong.
I actually have a question also for you regarding the same topic. I assume, and I guess all of the solutions for restaking from L2s are working in a way where user has to wait for some time until the thing goes to mainnet and then bridges back the LRT. But since it's all using the same bridge, the contract that mints the new token is the same. Is there more risk if you optimistically mint a token immediately when user deposits ETH on L2 and give it to him? I know there's like a very big downside because you can dilute the APR of everybody because everybody has to wait until the funds get shipped to the mainnet and actually get restaked. Aside of that, is there additional risk?
Yeah, I mean, anything that you add on top is always another trust assumption.
But is it actually something on top? Because you're still using the same bridge. So user just deposits, and then the same bridge just mints the LRT immediately, and then ships the funds to the mainnet.
Yeah, but by using the same bridge, if you're using a canonical bridge, you always have the period of like the 7-day period, right? So if you don't use that, there is risk somewhere. It can be an LP that's providing the fronting in a way that a cross works, for example. Like they're matching in a PvP manner, basically. So you have like these relayers, and they take the risk on themselves. So if something goes wrong, they can dispute the transaction, but they're taking over the risk. They front the liquidity, user gets their money, and the risk for a few days it's on them, will the money arrive. But
yeah. If you're using canonical bridge, you cannot even do that because canonical bridge will only mint a token once it gets locked on mainnet. But if you're using something else, then they can just say, well, when the deposit happens on L2, I'm going to mint it immediately.
Yeah, and then it's a risk of that bridge getting hacked and having a multi-chain scenario in the restaking part.
So without super diving deep into the tech itself, not sure how many of the audience is on the engineering side, let's dive into what drives the users, because no tech has any value if no one's using it. We've seen Blast giving us points, Eigenlayer expanding them across the universe, or cryptoverse, so to speak. How do you, Jorge, see Nektar addressing this? Because it's not the first protocol to launch, so you're essentially forced to replicate these models to drive users. What's your opinion on the points itself to begin with?
Well, trying to escape the points narrative, we renamed them drops. So it's not as, well, because we've seen a kind of point fatigue after all these months of points accruing. And you have to listen to the community. So far, I think it's still a thing. The market follows metas, like in any other thing in the world. I think points are still the way to go until the next thing comes up. we had to adopt them. There was no other way. And so far, it's in my opinion, the best go-to-market strategy. It's easier to manage expectations. I would say it doesn't create the same expectation than it would just rewarding people with straight-up tokens. But I would lie, because even if you give people rocks, they will think that those rocks are going to be something in the future, so they are going to get their expectation size anyway. So I think it's a very social, tough topic points. But yeah, I think it's still the thing.
And how do you tackle it? Like, you're in a similar position like Jakov there. How do you tackle it? How do you drive users after this all happened and like you weren't there in the beginning?
You mean once points are done?
Yeah.
With restaking in general?
Anything. I mean, from the lending market perspective, very curious because the points, as Jorge said, set some expectations, but since the tokens are already there.
Yeah, I mean, look, points are nothing new, right? If anybody has like American Express or credit cards, people have been rewarding with points, and it's an abstraction layer for creating more granular incentives and alignment with behaviors. So points kind of, they solve a problem. I don't think they're going anywhere. They're so new. Points have been around for like just a few months, right? So points are interesting. I like anything that supports product market fit. This certainly seems to have its own, but you ask a really important question, like, okay, after points, then what? And the same question applies to token emissions. Like, if you're launching a DeFi project, how are you going to bring people to your app? You're going to emit your token, right? And you're going to hope that people see value in that. The problem is that the token emissions eventually ran out. And that's problematic, especially for DeFi protocols and like lending, where you're trying to attract people with APY and attract people with a yield. So what do you do? At Venus, we designed something called Venus Prime, which instead of giving emissions to everybody for participating, it only gives people emissions to people who are helping secure the protocol. So maybe kind of like restaking and AVSs. So the way this works is you stake our governance token for at least 90 days. That unlocks boosted revenue wherever you're supplying. So instead of getting like 5% on ETH, you'll get 10%. And that's very potent, and that's kind of one of the business models we're trying to solve for sustainability and growth over the long term.
Yeah, continuation on what Brad said, points work. We know that for like decades. They're just built poorly and designed poorly in Web3. They're a less legal overhead method of navigating the users into the actions you want them to do. The problem is they're built very short-sighted. They're built for the TGE in most cases, versus thinking about it as another protocol that you use later on in governance, in voting, in like different models that kind of level out the voting power, for example, down the line. So something we've been doing at Jumper, we use points, of course, we call it a loyalty pass. And what it allows us to do is, for example, when we run ecosystem campaigns, like user activation campaigns on new chains we support, we skew the possibility of a win to a person who has more points. So the more points you have, the more raffle tickets you're getting, for example, right? And so there's an incentive for you not just to participate in the campaign, but there's also an incentive for you to just use the protocols, because you're going to get, a similar rate in an X protocol of a competitor, but here you're getting these points that help you kind of get more in rewards down the line. But after a potential token, all of the system can still stay as this like governance foundation in a way. So I think there's a lot to be done there. As Brad said, it's super early, and I think like people are just...
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm repeating it. So we're gonna need a few more iterations, but there's a few protocols that are doing it nice, like Jumper, for example.
Can we expect loyalty shops. Like while talking, you reminded me of Air Miles and like Lufthansa shop.
Yeah. So we actually have already like ecosystem of benefits. So I'll give you an example. So next week we're going to launch a campaign with Gnosis Pay, where different tiers are going to get different discounts on ordering a card. Or we have some protocols that are offering fee discounts on using their protocols based on what tier level you are. So the idea is to create this ecosystem of projects that we navigate the users to use, but because they're using all of them, it's kind of like, they get more benefits by growing points, they get more points, get more benefits type of thing.
So in your opinion, like question for everyone, I guess, points are here to stay or not?
Yes.
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 We're so early.
My favorite quote from Dubai. Jakov, your opinion on points from a perspective of a very big protocol that cannot move with such rapid pace and adopt every market shift?
Well, when it comes to a very big protocol that cannot do that, I think what's really important is to rely as much as possible on the integrations that are already there, that provide utility and attract the user base that's there not just because of points or future airdrops, but because of the value that is created. And then, since there's a bunch of new protocols appearing, launching, that can provide even more value to the same protocol, in this case staked ETH or Lido staked ETH, then it obviously makes sense to collaborate with these protocols and then combine the value of the underlying protocol that is too slow to, or like just doesn't have or doesn't need this points narrative, but can use other protocols' points to boost the common business strategy.
Thank you. Non-scripted questions, so don't blame them. So we spoke a lot about the security and risks, but we didn't mention that current only restaking protocol is based on multi-sigs, which are anonymous, like the signers are anonymous. Do speakers here think EigenLayer is there to stay, winner takes it all, or there's a potential on the market to disrupt because they had a hyper growth and instant success?
Because they had what?
They had a hyper growth and an instant success from the get-go.
I think winner take all in our industry is dangerous. Like, we don't want to see any winner take all, right? So I'm all for competitors to EigenLayer, which is the AWS of becoming the AWS of DeFi. Is it proven out? We don't know, because there's not these AVSs. They don't exist yet. It's like saying, will AWS prevail, but it offers like nothing yet. So time will tell, but I think in general it's an exciting area for innovation and continuing the incredible growth of DeFi. It's the fastest growing narrative in the history of crypto. I saw like most of you didn't have hands up when we asked about AVSs. This is like where all the action is right now, so it's definitely worth paying attention to.
For me, this sounds very much like which L2 will win it all, or which bridge will win it all, or which messaging protocol will win it all. And so looking back, it doesn't seem likely, because some will specialize for different things, the ecosystem will grow, and in general, creating a dependency like that, it's like, even from a perspective, like ETH being the main settlement layer is a very big risk in the industry, right? So I think we're not in a winner-takes-all situation, but EigenLayer might not be even the biggest one in 2-3 years.
Yeah, I think restaking is here to stay, and I think the network effect of EigenLayer is huge. It's going to be very difficult to disrupt their leadership in the restaking space, even if they are not like the most technically advanced restaking protocol in the end. But I think it's too early. I think there's still room for a lot of players on the restaking ecosystem. So yeah, I don't think them being this huge at this moment is going to be a problem in the mid-long term.
I think EigenLayer might have some advantages of potentially being more Ethereum aligned than others, but then like competitors obviously have to risk even more, and I think provide more features to the users to catch up, to compete. They don't have a first mover's advantage, so it always is a risky thing to do, but I think it's a must. So we'll see.
Thank you, everyone. Apparently our time is up, so we are thrilled to talk more about restaking, and you can catch us around the venue. Thank you.